There's worse than criminal incompetence with this Michael Cohen and with people with the news. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. Their family members and neighbors are too increasingly involved with them with World Trade Center predicate acts and with worse than criminal incompetence rackets with all sides of criminal and civil cases, planting the same sequence shifts, and with the interbranch forging names and sequences, putting fake things in the Ninth Circuit Court and other spots next to the World Trade Center, like the Ninth Circuit Court, right before the World Trade Center attack in that context, and the night before. In other words, increasingly people with the name Scalora have roles with past predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with a whole bunch of people tied to them and their cousins with different names, like Demora and his educators, increasingly involved with people involved with home break-ins and changing what's actually recorded. There are proofs that he called with someone in the background listening one time, and he left out what I recorded before that. And he used the recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, communicating other than that he was obligated to by the law as his roles in wire crimes in Weathersfield Police, increasingly switching names and still predicate acts relative to past ones. And a John DeMorrow next to and people associated next to the Weathersfield, the state education department. These are people out of the state corrections offices with people with foreign and domestic military also driving by it. Also, through time, the difference of that and the roles. There's more child defenders, leaders of the kids reported, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, tied, confirmed non-verbally by um, what's his name, Lance Cuddy. The only times I ever saw him, he was really quickly, and he not only for him to non-verbally confirm things. I never asked him anything verbally. I never had a verbal conversation with him. One time was next to the state corrections offices, and one time was next to the at Alina's Pizza in that tiki place there, associated with a Daryl Chandler or Daryl Sullivan. Daryl Chandler is also one of the many ones involved with judges and prosecutors and their family members with a whole bunch of different countries, like people from Korea involved with the Daryl Chandler with identity theft, fraud, slander, his educators, and people involved with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids are years apart as people that had time collusions with them. Also, people at elderly homes, people involved with the programs with the elderly, people with their narratives by the worth of their jobs. See, these guys are offensively pretending they believe jobs are worth what they are not. They're complaining, and they're making fake sides of issues as collusion slash as till. These celebrities are increasingly being used to jump into people's conversations and change and fake what they say about predicate acts, in fact, including about relative murder spots, murders, and their prisons involved with crimes at those body dumping spots with them before that, and the principal child abuser I caught them with. You guys change and fake what we say when we note the interbranch forging and switching names. They have the same house slash S personally and professionally involved with them, with dozens of people putting fake transcripts and fake ties, fake natures ties to people into databases and online, then changing what's digitally recorded. A Joshua Julian is increasingly involved with drugs and medicines crimes with judges and prosecutors at Hartford Hospital and people associated with him, like a Mark Violet and a Ray Claw with various international, unmarked police forms, intercities, people all along Route 3 associated with the Kerr family. People had conversations tied directly, indirectly to Tim O'Brien. They're making things up. They made things up with people all along New Britain Avenues and Rocky Hill and Hartford. How there are two of them has something to do with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with Hartford courts before the World Trade Center attack. They affected confessions to me and others in requests for help to say about things in use slash estimable locations with qualities, aspects, and nature that people from my town also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved. Has something to do with their roles with the Weathersfield Community Center through time and names at all sides of it, involved with judges and prosecutors and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people that have been planting evidences intercities and intra-cities and inter-campuses and intra-campuses, totally fake to change the audio or video at campuses. In other words, so the interbranch has been forging and switching names. They have a Trantola and Trantola as one of the police, as one of the lawyers, with a whole bunch of lawyers. There's a Robert Chevrolet, also with the FBI, with this Trantola and Trantola too, and his co-defendants and their roles all along Route 3, and where they do business with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, self-valued roles, abuses of the right to lie, all exceptions in exception nature, exactly the way the breaching method knew they would have to, because the breaching method employed them needing to lie, because the breaching method employed other roles self-valued with other communicated for James Madison and for our founders behind him and his plan before the first president. And then George Washington agreed to help them and to use that plan and to counter extort the rest of the rest of the founders, which again are distinct from presidents. And there are three natures of founders. They're in nature of Native American founders, and they're fighting with each other. They had to counter extort each other more and more because everyone was on systems tax, and it is on systems tactical terror from natures. The worth of these jobs and the value syntax and narrative styles. It's tactical terror from what can defend itself and afford to discern where and how nature uses its identity in all identities with relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, the same way, distinctly but not distinctly from how value has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, as we are actually manifest as this value/value progression. So you have cheap people trying to pretend things are politics on a mass scale as styles, where there are identities of law that are phenomena. In other words, worse than criminal incompetence with all natures of celebrities too. The sick natures getting involved with our kind. I shouldn't have to beg through people to get them on paper, one name and sequence, Interbranch, Connecticut. These are the ones involved interstates. You're going to see they're putting whole fake things in databases every year. And the difference between them doing that or the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of countries with their campuses involved. The difference of that too. Mark Violet has roles with a whole bunch of different countries with the military people at UConn who are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot, roles with the World Trade Center attack. Jonathan Mayano also has roles with his educators with this. Here, get them on paper, one name and sequence. What the hell? Get me off the fake conversations, WFSB. Stop linking. Get on my side. That's the right side. Let's deal with the fake conversations and get those people on paper. You have me in fake conversations with others too. Those are a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime at the same time. If you want forgiveness, then follow mandated law. Get them on paper. I want a response to the principal child abuser's confessions. He brought up a whole bunch of other natures and things and made a whole bunch of other confirmations because you guys had hid from you what brought that up to me. And you had changed in fake digital with this principal put in jail for digital evidences. No. For upskirt pictures, no. With people involved with shopping centers, no. Increasingly, people involved with shopping centers and malls have had roles with their extended family members and names they drop to me. Name dropping to make fake exceptions. That's how they make fake ties, fake nature of ties to people. These are people that have been seating juries associated with a Dr. Zeman. Also involved with a whole bunch of other doctors with drugs and digital crimes, with digital and medical and sexual offenders of kids, and with courts, his roles with seating juries, with judges and prosecutors and their family members involved with this Dr. Zeman and the Leahy family before him. And there's a Judge Killian, also criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, involved with digital crimes, with the Wethersfield police and other people with the principal upskirt nature on and off campus with worse. But then they put him in jail for also with as collusions with people at the prisons they put him through. And with as the people on and off the state corrections offices, there are more leaders of the kids tied to Lance Cuddy and people at the state corrections offices roles of the World Trade Center attack intercities, Connecticut, as ones interstates and internationally evolved, criminally foreign influence, international department at Central Connecticut State University also has a Dean Judd and his kid involved with the courts, and the former director of the FBI and his co-defendants, and former foreign and domestic military, including a Kuwaiti general and his family members, his kid, and a Dean Keys, and then her other boyfriend now, and their roles with differences rackets with also a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors and people associated with a a, a, a modern languages guy, Dr. Shu of modern languages. His roles in Newington locations and locations next to it are with people with intelligence families near me who have been planting evidences at and next to the campuses, like Trinity College, Central Connecticut State University, UConn, Quinnipiac University, Yale. These are involved with the FBI with wire and mail crime acts and methods that are being haven't been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw, and the CIA's name was brought in, but it's also other ways recorded involved, and people with forensics locations and whiting forensics are increasingly involved with people, and as people tied to a Joshua Julian, increasingly by themselves, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with them, uses of him as collusions with a violent, well, also from other areas. I never saw Joshua Julian in my area. He said he was looking from through my garage door and stuff like that. He has roles with people that planted evidence on all sides of my house in the past, and they're still doing this. These are people with Hartford Hospital and their roles with the fire department also increasingly being confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed, involved. Their family members run into Hartford Hospital to hide live progressions, where they force people for mental evaluations, hiding what came first, and making up fake recorded audio and video there, and then putting it through the mail, forging other doctors' names, putting whole fake transcripts. These are also male and female offenders of kids with their own kids involved. So I wish one person would have some gumption and focus on the predicate acts I mentioned to you, and their Facebook pages. The Facebook page of the Britain Superior Court and of Hartford courts, they have predicate acts with child sex offenders, leaders of kids, medical offenders, and before they were caught, and one's years apart too, as the ones that were time collusions with them with that. The people who have been calling the police and typing on their Facebook page, they want the breaching method needs them to be called rats because they're putting fake ties, fake names. The rules putting fake things in databases since before computers. There was a method by that. So in other words, New York City, you guys have all kinds of natures of organized crime from off your campuses, leveraged on off them, and that was sustained roles, self-value, with live progressions from that and standing as that as is actually recorded as nature as value. You think one identity of integrity spoke for the sciences when they spoke for the impositions of the kids on New York at New York City, let alone suburbs were designed tactically denatured as a landscape theater to have people the only way they cause positive value nature progressions, acts and natures to be more and more to self-value the criminal insidious natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts and nature is not really positive. And for the breaching of that needs criminal insidiousness natures of things that appear to be in syntactically treated positive and negative as collusions with itself, with where nature keeping out discern from nature shows us the difference between, like, for example, a truth can be used for a lie, a truth can be used to screen a lie, a truth can be used to screen motivations relative to all the different names of other countries, cultures, and differences, and influences involved when we have communications with ourselves that are being left out consciously and not for the reasons they pretend to even believe. Two, tactically delusions are out readings of the sciences, including American history. So we have to begin with this principle thing and the principle of James Madison and the founders behind him as their value. So as Native American, the three natures of the Native American founders are the first things to appreciate because the breaching method was sustained upon them first. They can't help but having been our first founders. But our first founders grouped, they are too. But that also comes with James Madison. And we're also supposed to be honest about that. But before we have the honesty about that, and we're not going to have it unless we simultaneously valuing how the Native American nature itself shows us there are three natures of Americans, Native American founders of America, the Native Americans that agreed to help and be the value of the Constitution unabridged. And the reason we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, and the plan used the plan of James Madison. Then there's the nature of Native Americans. There's the nature of Native Americans all on their own, no matter what they do or say. They're our founders. There's a part of them grouped even further, our founders. Then there's another part of them grouped that had to be counter extorted. That's further a third nature of Native Americans as the three forms of our founders. But we all had to be counter extorted, forced to rolls, to begin the path to getting ourselves unabridged. But see, the difference is just like the difference. Why we have the same color eyes, different color eyes, communicated to us, demonstrated to us, projected to us as nature's identity itself. In other words, we have other things others ourselves, replacing those demonstrations and pretending it's theory when we mention it. Then the debate about that, we have to get to the predicate acts. In other words, the predicate acts with facts methods regarding, the value of black people's rights of eyes and the revelations that come from this as evidence. People say, "Oh, what's your evidence?" and they quote some names and say just because it's in a book. They're currently formulables. Tactically, we have to deal with the principles of reason, the hyper invisible but still discernible, that which is true always, and not being used for a lie even then, not being used to change. Fake was also they use the word control. This preaching method already showed a certain type of victim / hyper victim. They need to hide how they use words like control as prosecutors and judges. Uses of that criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, are all kinds of natures of collusion /s at the prisons too, not just at the state corrections offices. Increasingly involved with people at body dumping spots and next to them, and with campuses and people next to them, involved with timed identity theft, fraud, slanders, making fake exceptions of people tied to each other with the people completely made up too. Increasingly their time use /s of that role. Whole bunch of people from other areas planted evidence on my street, like a Joshua. No, also like a Robert Rodriguez. He brought up the principal child abuser to me that I brought up first. I still haven't had a response. Everyone's still a coward, and they're getting away with it because they put fake. They have this where the intelligence demonstrates further. In other words, they put people to pretend passions and emotions online and make things up. As the responses when people mention predicate acts with the kids, with the elderly, with the veterans' homes, with the Weathersfield Police Department, with all sides of criminal and civil cases in the course at the same time. Increasingly, whiting forensics has roles with a whole bunch of people tied to a Joshua Julian involved with digital crimes with them, and ones involved with wire crimes with Weathersfield Police on my street, planting evidences with them, roles with predicate acts of other natures to various natures of organized crimes. They attached me to fake conversations with WFSB. WTNH has been planting evidences with their sources and at corners of streets all along Route 175. They act and they have other people take pictures, and because their roles with uses remotely of criminally foreign influence of investigations of investigators. For example, relative to the WFSB, World Trade Center predicate acts, faked and changed conversations with me and others, and that were in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center right before it too. Their criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, put me and others with fake communications with our family members and people around us about things that we never even had conversations with them about. They have been using the right to lie on a mass scale, intercities coordinated, a whole bunch of different police departments with the names with their educators and further educators involved with this Lance Cuddy and the FBI and other sexual and medical offenders of kids and a whole increasingly people tied to a former mayor Gold involved with there's a Michelle Sandquist. Well, I barely know. I only know she saw me out. She told I had a knife I bought through a magazine at the school. She tried to make it what it wasn't. No, I didn't. In other words, I told him Mr. Murphy he was nice, and Mr. Murphy also has roles with Korea and with a Kevin with a Kevin I don't know if remembers Kevin Harris is one of the ones with some judges and prosecutors and medical families who have been planting evidences at campuses, acting to have others lie about illusions too, just like a little magic tricks. So something at Quinnipiac University with a Kevin Harris involved with identity theft, fraud, slander with some judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic medical families and people involved with child abusers, leaders of the kids, first forced years apart too. Time use slash S of that roles and more involved. And this is one of the ones, Kevin Harris. He also abused um, the kid of one of the kids of a Mr. Murphy when I went to that school, associated with the there's a Michelle Sandquist and her family involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, increasingly a Mayor Gold's family and people associated with them, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, putting fake ties. Like a little exception one time. In other words, I didn't even get mad at her for it because I didn't even get in trouble too. In other words, when she told on me for having a knife, that was the closest I had to an interaction with her. Even though I was well behind her, I'm minding my business. They put a what's his name, Robert Heimgartner, next to me. His family has roles with a Czech Casper and a Casper family that also people from Hartford Hospital brought up. And these are people that did little switch sequence shifts to make it fake. Like they have people tied to a Smith family with the Weathersfield town offices and with some foreign and domestic leaders of kids and leaders and kids. They have collusions intercampuses and intracampuses intercities, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. There's an Afghan leader of the kids, and his daughter is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the Weathersfield town offices and with other libraries. There's a Joe DeMauro and a Heather Hansen. Also have a Mr. Neville involved with with them all along Route 3. Is increasingly people involved with predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and time collusions with a whole bunch of different nations and identity racketeering natures, including Black KKK team, Confederate flag team, right on Facebook recorded too, as the roles replacing that. So before the World Trade Center attack, before I went to Trinity College, the FBI and the courts had been planting evidences there and next to it with people on my street involved, people who used to be on my street and people tied to them. And this is per the police, too, that are forging and switching names and refusing paper because of their roles of weapons and bug sprays and poisons and the fire departments needing to hide live progressions. And see their roles with Russians. See, they don't have integrity. They're using the right to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. They're leaking. People with the fire department next to Trinity College increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, with the ones within some fire departments, intercities, has something to do with the roles with Russians too, putting fake things in databases. Increasingly, people tied to this Mark Violet and people at next to Harvard, as people at next to Harvard Hospital, and those businesses there, the Morrow's Market. I don't know if I think it's there anymore. I think it's in Rocky Hill now. And Ilo's Kitchen, also involved with predicate acts between campuses with the names next to campuses like their businesses there, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of medical corruption with the doctors and ones with badges too. So they have something to do with their confessions years before about their roles at the World Trade Center and planting evidences with the neighbors of some of the victims of that who are increasingly involved with predicate acts with people associated with body dumping spots and news predicate acts and putting fake motivations, lying about what they think about others and what they think about themselves, including the news, being influenced to this by their roles with the intelligence next to them and the difference of them more criminally foreign influence or the names at the news places. That's why do what's right and fix that by just following mandated law. Get the interbranch on paper, one name in sequence, timely, and I want a response for the confessions and the confirmations of the principal child abuser and the more digital crimes and evidences crimes involved there and other natures of organized crimes. And I want a response for this Leahy family that pretended they knew me with the courts too. They pretend to be put me in fake transcripts with themselves. Apparently, Rose forging a Dr. Shamsi Ali's name. These are also people stealing the identity of America. If they're related to that Leahy guy, we got to get that senator out of there. He's criminally foreign influence, tactically collusions wrought too. These are people from Vermont State Police increasingly involved with this Ray Cololo, Mike Roberts, and Eric Jensen with state police and with people with Middlesex Community College is increasingly involved with Wethersfield Police, with predicate acts, intercities, and intercampuses, and with the names on all sides of Central Connecticut State University. People with the name Kolvenskis and Mark Violet have been planting evidences on the sides of Central Connecticut State University. Also, people with the name Rick Cianfaglione with a Gill family and with judges and prosecutors like a Brian Silver and a Judge Smith and others involved with the same house on my street slash S, involved with multiple police departments, now involved with them with multiple falsified police reports and the news and names with their sources too, planting evidences and stories. Then that's used to keep cover ups, abuses of investigators past, including all kinds of torture methods at the prison to keep anyone from specific. If you tell them one thing, you can't tell another. No, in the elderly homes. So you go there, they're locked down. They can't tell anything. It's not the reasons with the drugs. They put those additional reasons on there so they can hide behind that because they have all kinds of legal scams, all kinds of money they steal with Anthony Agman and others with a Leahy family and other doctors that he will court to confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have all kinds of scams. They brought up the name Casper too. I never had a class with a Chet Casper. He's increasingly involved with people at the state judicial branch offices and all along Route 175 that acted so people could take pictures and they put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. It has something to do from the old Wethersfield founding locations all along Route 1, from there all the way along Route 175, all the way to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. Are people involved with the intelligence community being and having been used at the time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. These are people involved also with the Scalora family, with people from Cuba, with the intelligence community associated with whiting forensics and military. And there are some divers and people with diving spots associated with Fox Connecticut News stories and the fire departments involved with them planting evidence as predicate acts like with this Joshua Giuliani Facebook page with the Wethersfield Police Department, and with Joshua Schumacher and his mother with sexual and medical offenders of kids, uses of their roles with their differences, with their religions, with sequence shifts, pretending to perceive hate, and putting people in fake ties, fake natures ties, fake conversations to do that, as collusions also with the Board of Education and names next to it involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimately with unmarked police forms and acting professors in their narratives by pretending to have a legitimate means to cover things up. If you guys cared about that, you would follow mandated law as they suggest and get the heck on paper real fast and fix the fake conversations with me, WFSB in Rock Hill, Connecticut, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Because also these are increasingly people next to Fox Connecticut News involved with those World Trade Center predicate acts that are associated with the people involved with you that we can't forgive for that. The people, if you guys want to be forgiven as a organization, as a network, then follow mandated law and get them on paper like this. What is it? His name Roger Suzanne, and know how he looks like a guy at another news station as one of the ones involved. Fear.